Good morning. So, one of the things that Gorski and Miller go over in Staying Sober is the cycle of addiction and recovery. And so, the cycle of recovery goes like this. You've got the pre-treatment period where you recognize that you have some kind of addiction, and then there is what they call a motivational crisis, and that is the thing that compels you to get into treatment, whether it's voluntary, like mine was, where I was experiencing extreme mental disturbance, depression, and other things that compelled me to go into rehab, or whether it's external, like you get arrested or something else happens that causes you to be nudged into treatment. Then during treatment, you go through stabilization, where you and in a lot of cases, a team of professionals are managing withdrawal and the current crisis that brought you into that situation. And then after that is early recovery. And early recovery is where you experience acceptance of the disease of addiction and learn to function without drugs and alcohol. And I'll read just a little bit about early recovery. They say that it's during this time that you come to value sober living, and it's a structured time where you're going through a structured program to help you in this early recovery period. And what they say is this structured program is temporary. So kind of made me think of the rehab and then PHP and then IOP experience that I had, where for about 3 months I went through a very structured recovery program to help me get into my life in recovery. And they say the restructured program is temporary. Its duration will vary depending upon the severity of the addictive disease and the level of health and psychosocial problems. The goal is to teach you how to live as normally as possible without the use of recovery, how to live as normally as possible with the use of a recovery program. If you break a leg, a temporary cast is required to restrict movement and promote healing. When you have damaged your personality and lifestyle as a result of addictive disease, a structured recovery program is necessary to restrict unnecessary stress and distraction from recovery while healing occurs. Once this initial healing has occurred, total abstinence, sobriety, and productive living can be maintained with a far less restrictive recovery program than required during stabilization and early recovery. So, this reminded me of the advice that I got from many people, which was to, as soon as I got out of a structured rehab environment, a residential rehab program, to go into some of the PHP, partial hospitalization, where I was doing classes every day for 2 weeks, and I was in classes from 9 in the morning until about 2:30 in the afternoon. And this helped me to ease back into normal society while still having a structured rehab program. And then even after that, when I went back to work, I did an evening IOP where 3 times a week I went to an outpatient program for 3 hours, where we would discuss recovery-based topics. We would have a process group where we could process anything going on with us, and really kept me in that recovery, structured recovery environment, while I was still going to outside AA meetings and getting back into regular life. If it sounds like a lot, it's because it is. Just like the analogy of a cast that they use, you have to take some fairly extreme measures in order to allow the healing to occur so that you can get to the next stage, which is the middle recovery period. During the middle recovery period, the primary goal is lifestyle change. In early recovery, your addictive lifestyle was replaced by a structured recovery program that was developed by treatment people, helping you to begin recovery. In middle recovery, the challenge is to gradually develop a normal, balanced lifestyle that is sobriety-centered. Later, they say, instead of focusing on not using, you focus on normal life issues, your job, and your family. So, the middle recovery period is definitely where I feel like I'm at now. I'm out of, at about a year and 3 months into this, I'm out of a very structured program and still learning how to deal with the regular day-to-day stresses of life and incorporating my recovery in with just regular normal life things. However, there's something important that they mention here that I want to bring up. They say, as an addicted person, it is typical for you to establish an addiction-centered lifestyle, even though you are now abstinent. This is accomplished by using other addictions in place of the original addiction. The goal is to establish a balanced lifestyle that is addiction-free and based upon sobriety-centered values and activities. So I have heard a lot of people in recovery who will say, blank is my new addiction. So, even hearing people say recovery is my new addiction, exercise is my new addiction, baking is my new addiction. It can be anything that they find a new outlet for that addiction. And we have to remember that, in the beginning, we kind of take the tack of, well, whatever keeps you sober, do more of that. But we've got to be careful that we're not just trading one addiction for another. Because even though it doesn't wreak the kind of chemical havoc that alcohol and drugs do, any addiction is going to be damaging to our lives and is going to get in the way of our recovery. Now, we've also got to be careful not to mistake addiction for passion. So, doing something you're passionate about because you just like to do that and want it to be a part of your life, that's not necessarily addiction. So sometimes we get those two things twisted. But we got to be careful that we're not getting into a position where we become addicted to something else, to doing something else, where then being separated from that thing or the absence of that thing actually causes us mental distress, or our pursuit of that thing starts causing problems in other areas of our lives. That's when we know we kind of crossed back into the addiction threshold and we've got to pull it back a little bit. So that is the early and middle stages of recovery. And I was a little surprised as I read this to see that there is more beyond that. There's late stage recovery and maintenance period. So we are going to look at those two tomorrow and see what things look like after the middle stage. What happens once we get to the point where we've really fully stabilized in our recovery. We have a recovery, our own personal recovery program down. We don't have addiction as a part of our lives. What do things look like at that point? That's what we'll look at tomorrow. In the meantime,